Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the political commentator, Tim Montgomery, and Daily Mirror columnist, Susie Boniface. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Eye leads on a poll of British voters on what they think of the recent budget. The Guardian's front page looks at a claim from Chancellor Rachel Reeves that Britain's wealthy must pay to fix the country's creaky public services. The Sun is sticking with the recent budget with the words Chancellor of the Exchequer, or Chancellor even. The FT looks at the newly introduced mansion tax as homeowners rush to avoid being affected. The Express is focusing on the impact of the recent budget on the elderly, saying that 2.2 million pensioners will lose out on winter fuel help. On the front of the Mail, liar Reeves must go now. And the same accusations are on the front of the Telegraph, adding Reeves is on the brink. The Express is focusing on the impact of the recent budget on the elderly, saying that 2.2 million pensioners will lose out on winter fuel help. The Times warns hospitality they face a huge stealth tax after Rachel Reeves' budget. The Mirror's front page features TV host Ruth Langsford on her split from former husband Eamon Holmes. And tonight we're joined by Tim Montgomery and Susie Boniface. Welcome to you both. Shall we start with the budget, as many of the front pages...
Everyone in the whole world thinking, oh, isn't it over yet?
It's not over yet.
Budget. 3 days on.
Let's start with the Eye.
Last a week, don't they?
Let's start with the Eye. And we had so much speculation before. It does feel like a very long time that we've been discussing the budget. The Eye tending to have a look at what people think of it. Reeves' budget is least popular since Liz Truss era. Voters are saying...
It wasn't that long ago. It's not difficult, is it?
Public supports most individual measures in the budget, yet most people feel negative about the overall package. And voters like higher gambling taxes, freeze in some rail fares, minimum wage hike and £2 million mansion tax.
So people like taxes on other people and things to benefit themselves. Well, I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
I don't like it, but I don't mind that bit. I don't mind that bit. I don't mind that bit. But no, it's awful, isn't it? That's the great British public.
I think the fundamental problem is that Rachel Reeves, since she became Chancellor, has been obsessed with balancing the books, which is also an important thing to do. But before they came to power, Labour said their priority was growth. Growth is the only fundamental thing that changes the terms of reference for how you balance the books. And the one thing, mentioning Liz Truss, the one thing Liz Truss was right about was that Britain's become a slow-growth economy. It's the fundamental challenge we face as a nation, because if you're not growing, you can't pay for the public services, etc., that we want. And you have a tax system, therefore, where most people start to lose out. And the extraordinary thing about this budget, from a government that said this was their priority, had not really one single pro-growth measure. And you can look at all sorts of angles of this budget, but that seems to me to be the most worrying one. And the Conservative Party didn't address this issue when they were in power. It's a general problem across Europe and the Western world, but we are a particularly bad case of it at the moment.
The public do not like this budget, Susie.
No, and I think partly it's because what most people absorb about the budget, and indeed what we've absorbed probably about the budget as well, is what other people are saying about it, right? And it's what people say in the pub or down the road or in the taxi or when you look turning on television, it's what people say. And, you know, there were some growth measures in the budget. There was the issue, for example, of making people invest. If they have money to save, they have to put it in a stocks and shares ISA, which means you're investing in a British company rather than just in a savings ISA, which means it's just sort of sitting there and it's ticking over.
There were very few, but there weren't big ideas.
Some in there, and so to say that there is none, it's not great.
No, nothing that's game-changing.
The fact is that nobody likes budgets. They're really boring. They go on for ages. They usually get unpicked. You know, what's said on day one of the budget is never quite how the budget looks on day 7 because it gets picked over by the journalists and they find things there that went on. There's always the U-turns and the pasty taxes and the church taxes and other taxes that come around and get overturned. So that does always happen. But
not on this
when
scale.
you actually speak
industrial
and what it
scale.
says here about how people approve of the individual measures, that's because they've had a poll where they say, overall, what do you think of the budget? And they go, oh, God, awful. because that's the tone, that's the narrative that's being told. But then they say, how do you feel about the mansion tax? Oh, that bit's all right, because I haven't got a mansion and I like the idea of taxing people who do have mansions. And what do you think about the lifting the child benefit cap? Oh, that bit's OK, but because that might apply to me one day, but I don't like the rest of it. And so if you talk to someone in detail and you inform them, they go, I understand and I approve of that, whether it affects me or not. If you ask people about the narrative in general, it's always negative. And I think that's partly to do with just the tone, the narrative we've got in the country, which is everything's awful, it's grim, these people are terrible at what they do, and nothing's going to improve. And some of that might even be true, but it's still...
Well, it is true.
It's still a depressing narrative that no one can find the hope in. And I think the government has to find the hope in that narrative, Labour has to find that hope, and if your pals at Reform need to be elected, they need to find some hope, because they're even more negative than everybody else.
Well, according to the Eye, it's not great news for your party, Reform. They've taken a big drop in their poll lead, and the Tories are the ones gaining ground now.
Well, I think the other polls that are out today that show that Reform's lead, is sustained, so you can take different polls. I think what has powered Reform's support over the years, and I think it's powering the support for the Greens as well, is the sense, and it's very deep in the electorate. There's a brilliant report by Sky's Beth Rigby on this yesterday. Voters are really angry with politicians' failure to keep their promises. And people will say it. When I meet Reform voters, they say, well, we don't know whether you will be any better, but we're willing to give you a chance because we're just so fed up with the political system. And I think what was important about Beth's report yesterday was that she really focused on how disillusioned voters are. So you can look at this budget from an economic perspective, of course, but I think this is another very serious contribution to the British people's loss of faith in politics, because Labour haven't said, yes, we've broken promise. They haven't owned up and said we're doing it for this purpose because we need to invest in whatever. They're almost still denying that they've even changed course. And one thing people don't like is being taken for fools. And I hear what Susie says about, there's always bits and pieces in budgets that don't work. But the scale, I think, of the way this has been mishandled, and I'm surprised there's not more in the newspapers about this OBR thing that we've learned today, where basically Rachel Reeves was told...
We're coming on to that.
We're
coming on to that. Yeah.
not-
So, I mean, the Eye talking about, what the public think about the budget, but a lot of the other papers talking about the fact that perhaps the Chancellor has been economical with the truth. And The Sun, the headline there, I think they get the prize for the headline, Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yeah. And again, it's one of these things which is about narrative. So the idea is that because the budget forecast she was given was that maybe she was £2 billion astray from where she needed to be, and she has gone and got 26 billion extra headroom, and therefore she's lied in order to take more taxes. That is the allegation. But let's just step back a little bit from all the he said, she said, and the detail and all the rest of it. So many times I've sat in this chair with someone other than Tim, but in that chair, who has said often, and they've also said this, look, what Rachel Reeves did wrong with her first budget was she didn't get enough wriggle room and she didn't ask for enough taxes. She's only gone for a little bit and she's going to be in trouble further down the road. And so what she's done in her second budget is exactly that. She's gone and got extra headroom, more play, and the idea would be that if you can do that in your first budget, you then have maybe 4 years in which you can start handing it back out, you can invest in something and you can start to see the benefits of it. So by the time you come around to the next election, you can say, look at me, I'm a brilliant whizzy Chancellor. I know, I can see, around the corners, everything's fine. She's done it on her second...
She won't be Chancellor by then.
She's done it on her second budget rather than the first. And we've got had she done that in her first, she'd have exactly the same argument. She'll be saying, well, there's a £20 billion black hole, as they did after the general election. And the Tories would be saying, no, you're definitely making it up. There isn't one. It was only 9 billion or whatever they're saying. And there'd still be a to and fro about it. But I think the public would probably have taken it a little bit easier at that point, had she done it then. She's done it a year late. She's done it in such a way where the OBR are going to come out and say what they forecast really were. So it's obviously always going to be that everyone would always have known. So some of the papers that are talking about it are saying, oh, it's all a big scam. She was trying to get away with it. It was a lie. She's trying to shore up save her and Keir Starmer. It's not a very good lie, because it was something that was always going to come out in a few days and was a waste of time.
I don't think it was a scam. I think this is a government that just doesn't know what it's doing. There's been the toing and fro, because it goes from one week to another with a different policy. And this is something that's been true of British governments now for a long time, is that they have been led by the OBR to change their policies as to whether a forecast that's often wrong. Economic forecasting is the opposite of a science. It's very inaccurate. And we should not be deciding our economic policy by short-term forecasts. We should decide as a country how we're going to become competitive again by investing in infrastructure, by investing in education, by keeping taxes low, whatever we're going to do, and then we should stick to that course. That's what investors really want Britain to have a plan. It's the absence of a plan that is at it. I mean, people will support tax rises. That's the opinion polling evidence, if they know that they're going for a purpose and there'll be a reward at the end of it. These taxes aren't just going for the wiggle room. A lot of it's going on welfare and unproductive welfare. The welfare bills won't cut. It's not going for the kind of investment that could change this country.
What's
Daily Mail.
unproductive bit of welfare?
Well, people who should be gainfully employed, if they were helped into employment, could be better citizens, happier people, and less of a drain on the state.
Right.
We have welfare rolls now that are bigger than most of Europe, that are expanding much faster than any predictions. That is not healthy.
Yes, but there's a cap on welfare. So, and there isn't cap on salaries. So you can't claim
what
more
kind
than...
of cap is there on welfare?
It's a benefit cap.
There's cap on individual
There's a
people,
benefit cap.
but the overall cap for the whole of Britain there's not a cap for that, and it's rising out of control.
Right, well, that's because we have an ageing population.
No,
And
that's
the idea of-
no.
If you want to say that there is a non-productive part of the welfare state, is it pensions that is the bit that's non-productive? Because they're not...
I don't know.
Is it child benefit? What's the bit? I mean, Rachel is really clear on the front of The Guardian, where she explains why she's done it. In an interview with Pepper Crow, she says why she's done it, that she thinks the richer people in the mansions should be paying a little bit more. There is obviously some parts of the budget where, as we'll see on the front of the Telegraph, for example, that high street shops are going to be paying slightly more business rates and so on. That's not just rich people paying. There's an argument to be had whether she's right or wrong, but she is trying to lay it out.
You're trying to talk this out, so I can't even reply. Look, yes, of course pensions are rising. The West is in decline. Most Western countries are in decline because of the pensions and health bills. What Britain is doing on top of that is adding an awful lot of extra welfare spending. It's expensive to tackle. I have had mental health problems during lockdown. Me getting out of it wasn't easy. Getting other people off welfare isn't going to be easy, but it has to be an objective because people parked on welfare for a long time. They would never get the benefit of their talents, and also it's too expensive for a country that's already struggling to meet the bills. It isn't just pensions. If that was pensions, we would already be in trouble. But the fact we're adding welfare on top means we're in a very serious economic situation.
Yeah, but the reason the welfare grows is because people don't get the help they need when they need the help.
Just to round it up, I wanted to bring in the Daily Mail and their front page, Liar Reeves must go now. Is that too harsh? Is that unfair?
Yes, it's lunatic.
Well, she's acting like a Labour spin doctor
No, right. She's told an untruth, maybe, right? If the black hole...
Not a lie, an untruth.
If there's 2 billion... Well, if it's calling someone a liar and they're saying someone's misleading, they are two different things, and parliamentarians are getting a bit sticky about it, so I'm trying to be polite.
You wouldn't if it was a Tory who'd done this.
She said she didn't see the detail. So if she knew there was a 2 billion hole and she told people it was a 20 billion hole, yes, that's definitely very misleading, possibly a lie. But how many chancellors have done that? All of them. Why did the Office of Budget Responsibility get set up by George Osborne in the first place? It was because he said you cannot trust chancellors to get this right all the time because they're making decisions for political reasons. We need an OBR to regulate, to check the sums, to make sure it's OK. After the financial crisis in 2008, we need an OBR so that we don't rely on politicians who've just got a whizzy idea about growth, that they get away with it. And it was the OBR that caught out Liz Truss. And it's been very useful. But now, when it's not serving our purpose, we want rid. Well, pick a side.
Tim's remaining silent.
Well, anyone who's
You've only got 10 seconds.
watching this and has seen Rachel's twisted turning know that that's nonsense.
Tim and Susie, thank you very much for the moment. We're going to take a break. Coming up, amongst the stories, we'll be discussing this on the Financial Times, focusing on those anti-corruption authority raids on the home of one of President Zelensky's top advisors. We'll be right back.
in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry. It is an anti-woman agenda.
Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Anybody else?
Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Sky News, get the full story first. Free wherever you get your news. Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the
Why
UK.
don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcasts.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Tim Montgomery and Susie Boniface. Let us take a look. We'll go inside the Times newspaper. And this is the news that there will not be national screening for prostate cancer, much to the dismay of many notable names. For instance, Chris Hoy, excuse me, who has stage 4 prostate cancer, that this is not going to be made available to men on a large scale.
No, and so those who've been campaigning for it are very unhappy about it. Had Chris Hoy had some screening because he has some of the cancers in his family, then he would have been in what they are recommending, which is that those who have a high risk have a targeted screening programme. So he should have been caught by something like that had one existed for him. But the issue is that if you drill down into the detail, that if you did have this screening programme, you might have saved 2 lives in every 1,000 men who go through the screening, but there'd be another 12 men in those 1,000 who would be overtreated, who would be treated when they don't need to be, because some prostate cancers can be very slow growing, quite benign, and are not going to cause you a big problem. And those people could be left with incontinence, erectile dysfunction, other problems, and of course cost a huge amount for the NHS to have to deal with as well. And there is some
mental health anxiety of being treated for these things unnecessarily.
And
as well.
there is a similar issue, although there is a big breast cancer screening programme, that there's a degree of overtreatment in there, and in other cancers that women get screened for as well, like cervical cancer. There's overtreatment and ill effects as a result, and they've looked at this and decided that it's probably not quite worth it, and they need to target some particular people with particular genes. And then there's some, actually, they should target some ethnic groups as well. That black men are twice as likely to have prostate problems, and Ashkenazi Jews are more likely to have some of the BRCA1 genes. So, I mean, it's something where I think perhaps science has moved on to the point where you can do it in a more targeted way. And they'll probably maybe get to the same point, maybe with breast cancer and other cancers. They just, as they have done with cervical cancer and screening for HPV first. They've found better ways of doing it.
But the issue is that some of the men, in particular with the BRCA1 gene, might be missed because they won't necessarily know that they have this gene, so therefore will not come forward for screening, and that's the issue.
Well, there's lots of issues here, really, and it's one of the reasons why I wouldn't really ever want to be a politician, because they're having to take decisions which have profound consequences for people, and they have to find a system that suits everyone as much as possible. And now they find themselves, up against cancer survivors or people who are struggling with cancer, and you don't want to be a politician facing that. But as Susie said, there are ways. If you had a national uniform testing programme, which had been the demand, there'll be certain people who are harmed by it, and they have decided that the overall net effect of more will be harmed than the benefit. But of course, both sides are going to say they're going to look at it through their own perspective, and their families will look at it through their perspective. And it's not easy sometimes to be dealing with these things, and this is a real... If it was overwhelmingly on one side, perhaps the public would more accept it, but it isn't. It's a narrowly balanced judgment. On this.
And it is a recommendation. We don't know whether it will be accepted. It could be overruled by...
And the cancer charities are fairly divided as well. Some do want it, some don't, so...
Let's go to Ukraine, front page of the FT. Crisis in Kiev. Zelensky weakened as top aide quits after anti-corruption raids. Who wants to take us into this first?
Well, this is a chap who is... I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name. Sorry, Tim, because I'm just leaning forward. I've decided it's me who's going to be...
OK, that's fine.
Sorry. This
shocked.
is Now then, this is the chap who's in charge of Zelensky's private office.
Andriy Yermak.
Thank you. He is also one of the chief negotiators for the Ukrainian peace deal, and his home has been raided by corruption officials. There's a big scandal going on in the Ukrainian government. Their party is saying, well, look, if he hadn't gone, there would have been demands for his head, basically, and he's resigned and stepped down. And we were talking about before we came on, the issue is whether this is something which has weakened Zelensky, as it claims on the FT, or whether it's something that Zelensky has sort of sacrificed this guy in order to get that Ukraine peace deal, because it was something, the corruption scandal was something that the Americans were very, very antagonistic about, and it was causing them some concern in terms of they're going to start putting billions of pounds of investment into a post-war Ukraine. They didn't want to think a lot of it was going to go and line anybody's pockets. So I think, personally, he's thrown someone under the bus in order to get a better deal and maybe security guarantees out of Donald Trump. Tim?
Well, we all remember Zelensky is now sort of seen as a statesman, but he began as a comedian. And this chief of staff really was one that helped him succeed politically, helped him go through the complexity of politics. So he's been his right-hand man for a long time. So I would be surprised if Zelensky was trying to get rid of him. And one angle which I think we should at least countenance is Russia has a habit of using compromise against people.
Tim.
Oh, I've got to stop. OK.
Tim, Susie, thank you so much. Much more opportunity at 11.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.